Omar, so why are startups important for fintech to thrive in the global Islamic economy? You've heard the comments on the first two panelists. Why is fintech so important? Why is it going to make a difference?
All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's always good to be able to share, and I hope I always bring value in the sessions that I participate in. My perspective is, I would say, very uniquely from the startup world. I've been an entrepreneur for about 18 years, and I've never had the opportunity or the chance to work in a large corporation. But I guess to address this question, it can take a long time. I'll try and zoom into a few main points. The form of a startup and the way it operates and the way it grows makes it very, very different from the rest of the finance industry. So when you talk about fintech, there are certain things that startups would be able to do that probably would be difficult or maybe even impossible for the incumbent institutions as well as the stakeholders to do. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. When Ethis started, it was to serve a need. That's how most startups begin, right? They see a problem, they identify a solution or possible solution to their problem, and they try and solve it. And typically, we try and solve it fast. Not solve it in its entirety, but to begin to solve the problem. Yeah. So when you look at how startups grow, they're typically small, and when they are small, they are also very nimble. It is this attribute of being nimble that I feel is what startups bring to the table when you talk about fintech, and specifically when you talk about the Islamic world, where there are so many gaps and so many problems and so many challenges in all the different communities around the world. Fintech can come in to serve, or startup fintechs have a better chance of understanding these problems because they come from the ground and creating sometimes very narrow or very specific solutions that tend to be very scalable in the end. Yeah? So that's the first main point that I want to highlight about being small and nimble. Like when we started, it's just to help Muslims in Singapore. We started in Singapore to invest in Sharia compliant opportunities. And that's how it evolved at the start. And over time, we responded to both sides. We responded to the need of the market to raise funds, as well as the needs of the investors and the communities that we built. So that's the second point. That brings me to the second point that I want to share today. A key difference between startups and big, in this case, financial institutions, would be who we are answerable to from the business perspective, who dictates or influences our decisions. Yeah? Of course, startups want to make money, but many startups focus very intensely and very passionately on solving the problem first and responding to the needs of the market or the people that we are trying to serve. Whereas large institutions, it can be difficult, it can take a lot of time for them to analyze what they're doing and get recommendations and get consultants and then go through all the different layers before something is approved, and by that time the problem has changed. Yeah? So it is both points about being nimble and who you are answerable to or who you're trying to serve makes a lot of difference. For a startup, a lot of startups lose money. At the end of the day, of course, they want to make money, right? At the end of the day, it has to become profitable at a certain point. But before that, prior to that, it's all about capturing the essence of what we're trying to solve and spreading out into the market, right? So when a startup approaches small problems in that way, and that problem, typically it's a small problem or a narrow problem maybe to the large financial institutions. But when we find a solution that addresses that gap, and in the Muslim world especially, that gap tends to be something that is very widespread. So if we can solve a specific problem, let's say a microfinance problem in Indonesia, that same problem can probably be repurposed or localized to another country, and that can be implemented there. When you add on the layer of the Islamic world, then it becomes an even larger opportunity. That's the way I see it. Because the Muslim world has a lot of similarities at the most fundamental level. Right? We have a lot of similarities in terms of how we want to do things and the things that are important to us. So if we can find a solution that works in Indonesia, inshallah it will work in Nigeria. If we can find a solution that works in Pakistan, the solution can also work in Bangladesh, right? So that's how I believe startups are different, to wrap up my point. And to have an impact, startups must be seen as an important part of the ecosystem. Maybe just some personal sharing. When I first started on this, on Ethis, about 4 years ago, it was very different at that time. Nobody knew who we were and nobody cared. And the fact that I did not like to wear coats and blazers made people dismiss me very easily, you know. When you go to big conferences, everybody is smart and you come out with a t-shirt, and who's this kid, what's he trying to do here? So, yeah, I'm not that young anymore, I'm not a kid, but yeah, that is something that I decided consciously to dress differently because I wanted to make a point. I wanted to let the industry see that there is a need to think differently and to look at things differently, right? And that is what startups bring to the table at the end of the day. And for all of those of you who are thinking of doing a startup, my advice is to start fast and move fast because the world changes so quickly. And the only way to really capture the market, I feel, is through small solutions, plugging in to the bigger ecosystem, and inshallah scaling up together. Thank you very much.